Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I just wanted to compare these two laptops. On the right I have a 2018 Core i5 MacBook Pro, and on the left I have the M1 MacBook Pro. Now there's a lot that looks the same on the outside, but there's a few key differences I wanted to talk about that really set these things apart. So right off the bat, I'll show you the specs on both of these machines. This one, the M1, is just a base model. M1 MacBook Pro with 8GB of RAM, 256GB of storage, and this is an upgraded i5 MacBook Pro. It has 16GB of RAM and 512GB SSD. So we're comparing a little bit of different machines. This is a higher end model than that one was back in its day. But in spite of that, there's some key differences here that make the experience quite a bit different. And I wanted to start off first with some of the similarities between these two machines rather than those differences. And right off the bat, obviously, the biggest similarity that you can see is the body itself and the way the machine looks. There's a few subtle differences. I won't bore you too much, but the M1 is slightly thicker. And obviously, the keyboards are different on the two machines, but the speaker grills here are slightly different. And I have noticed on the M1 that it sounds a little bit more bassy, a little bit more thumpy. So I think that is an improvement there. But the design here is incredibly similar. If you compare them right side by side, you'll see that the M1 actually has a slightly darker shade of space gray, but it doesn't matter too much, honestly. If you'll notice when you pick up the two machines, the M1 has a little bit more thickness, a little bit more mass to it. It has a little bit more of a curve around the edges compared to the i5 MacBook Pro, which is a little bit thinner around the edges, interestingly. So there are some differences there, but for the most part, when you're carrying them around, when you have them in your backpack, they feel incredibly similar. Okay, now I wanted to go ahead and just check out some of the internal similarities and differences between these two machines. And the first one, surprisingly enough, is a similarity, and that is with the disk speed. So we'll start off here with the 2018 MacBook Pro. Considering this is a 4-year-old machine, this is super impressive. We got about 1800 on the write speeds and 2600 on the read speeds. And you would think with a machine this nice and this advanced as it is that the M1 would be a lot faster, but it's about the same. 2000 on the read, 2800 or 2000 on the write, 2800 on the read. So really it's a surprisingly similar score between the two machines. And especially considering the scandal, if you can call it that, of the M2 MacBook Pro and Air, these are solid numbers. And it really, you can't count it against the 2018 that it's going to affect performance because it's so similar between these two machines. Now if we open up Geekbench, I'm not big into benchmarks, but it really does illustrate a point here of the differences between these two machines. And this is where the M1 MacBook Pro really simply just hit it out of the park. You can see the single core score on the left on both the machines. It's nearly double on the 2020 M1 MacBook Pro compared to the 2018. Now these really aren't bad numbers. If you compare it to even some newer machines, it really isn't that far behind, especially if you're looking at mid-range devices and the like. It really isn't that bad. But if we start to open some applications, you will see the difference. So let's just open up a few apps and just see it going right off the bat. So PowerPoint in 3, 2, 1. Boom. Opens right up on the M1. Let's open up PowerPoint on here. 3, 2, 1. Takes an extra second on there for sure. Let's just open up the calendar. Opens right up. Calendar in 3, 2, 1. Takes a little bit of an extra second there. So that is, you can notice the difference there. I remember the very first time I ever played with an M1 machine, what I did was I opened every single application on the dock and I watched all of them pop open almost as soon as you clicked on them. And that really was what distinguished to me the M1 chip, is how quickly it can open those applications and handle those loads. Let's find another application just to compare quickly. Let's open up news. See, it takes a little bit of time there. Let's see how long it takes on here. Takes probably 3 times as long on there, okay? And that's also my first time ever opening it. So you can see there that there's a definite performance difference between opening applications, but then you have to ask yourself, okay, during your day, how often are you actually opening applications? Most of the time, you're just working in the applications. So that's when the actual differences, the physical differences between these two machines become important. Now, the biggest and most obvious difference between these two machines in terms of your day-to-day use has to be the keyboard. And it's a real shame because the keyboard on this machine, of course, is the butterfly keyboard. And on here, it's the Magic keyboard that they introduced again in 2020 on these MacBook Pros. And that is really the only reason why I cannot recommend getting one of these older MacBook Pros in 2022. It really holds it back. And if you look at my YouTube channel, I'm always a proponent for older technology. I'm always checking out older stuff and seeing how well it works in 2020. And I'm always trying to tell people, you don't need the M1. You don't need to go all the way. This works perfectly well. And even a part of me inside didn't want to get the M1 just because this does the job just fine. But this keyboard, I'm just going to tap the keys a little bit and you can hear what it's like. And then if you go over here to this keyboard, so I hope you can hear the difference there. There's a little bit, well, I shouldn't say a little bit, there's a lot more travel on the M1 MacBook Pro and the new Magic keyboard, and it is a lot more satisfying to type on because of that. This butterfly keyboard here, this has gone through a lot of use. It has about 1,300 cycles on the battery, so this keyboard has been through a lot, and it just feels kind of mushy. Given this is the 2018 revision, which includes some silicone membranes, which I think actually made the feel of the keyboard worse on these machines, even though it probably is more reliable. But the keyboard is really the only reason why I can't recommend this 2018 MacBook Pro now, because I see so many stories of people having the keyboards fail on them. Just nightmare stories of people losing money and having useless computers because of a broken keyboard. And even this one, as I've used it over the last few weeks, I've discovered that the space bar is starting to double click, which doesn't sound like a huge issue, but if you're writing code, if you're just typing out messages as soon as you can, it becomes almost unusable. It's just rough. So I would just tell everybody, if you have one of these machines and if you're happy with it, if it's treating you well, or if you're able to get a keyboard replacement, it's going to work well for you, but I simply can't say with a good heart to try to get one of these right now, because this keyboard has a good chance of screwing you over. Another major difference that you have to consider with these two machines is the battery life difference. Now, this isn't fair whatsoever for this 2018 machine, because let me show you real quick. The number of battery cycles on this machine is absolutely insane. It has here 1,288 battery cycles. So it's been through a lot, but even with the unfair disadvantage that it has with those batteries, this thing only lasts me a couple of hours of use. Meanwhile, this M1 MacBook Pro, I haven't even gotten close to bringing it below 80% yet. I've topped it off a couple of times, but the amount of use that you can get out of this machine without even moving the battery life a couple of percent is insane. And on top of that battery difference, you can feel it in your lap when you're using the two machines. This thing will start to get warm. It'll start to get hot if you're loading things up for the first time when you turn it on in the morning. While this thing, I haven't even felt it hot yet. Even when I was first setting it up, installing all the applications, installing software updates, I couldn't get it to even warm up. I think I've only heard the fan once on the M1 MacBook Pro, while the fan on this 2018 machine spills up all the time when I start opening things up and making it work hard. And as much as that sounds like it really isn't much of a difference, when you're using it day to day, when it's in your hands, when it's being carried around to classes or whatever it be, that's something that affects your experience. When something is like this, cool, quiet, the battery life is lasting forever, it just feels like a device that can accompany your life in so much better of a way compared to something that's feeling like it's struggling against you constantly. So there's a hidden value in the M1 there that you don't hear about too much, that it has those benefits. So even if you think, okay, this 2018 machine is fast enough, it opens up applications quick enough, it does the job, um, it's a quick machine, but there are those subtle differences there that make the M1 just so much better. The battery's going to last you, the fan isn't going to bug you. It just makes it so much better of a device when you're actually using it every single day. So those are my closing thoughts on the M1 MacBook Pro versus the 2018 MacBook Pro. I have to say, for the price that I got the M1 MacBook Pro, it was only $690 on eBay. I had to search a little bit for that, but considering the price, it's well worth getting the M1 MacBook Pro over something older than it in this day and age. You're simply getting so much more performance, so much more future-proof ability, those benefits with battery life, those benefits with cooling. It's just a device that's so much more worth it. And I'm always scouring eBay looking for a deal. I'm always on Amazon looking for deals. And these 2018 MacBook Pros simply are too expensive for what they are. I would only consider getting one if you're getting it for $200 or $300 as a side device, as something that you're just using for a complete non-essential device in your life. You're gonna have issues with the keyboard eventually if you use it enough. So because of that, I can't recommend it in good faith. Try to find out an M1 MacBook Pro, try to find a deal on one, get it used on eBay, because it's gonna serve you well. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please check out my channel and give me a like, comment below if you enjoyed it. So take care, bye.